Billy Williams, you saw him in the documentary, an 18-year veteran, a Hall of Famer, joins us now. Billy, you're in the documentary. Your thoughts on your teammate and longtime friend, Ernie Banks?
I'll tell you, over the years, I couldn't have picked a better ball player to be teammates with, to spend the summer with, to just enjoy what was going on. He was one of the most positive and the most energetic player I ever met. And, of course, he set the standards for shortstop. I heard you guys mention that. A-Rod and all the tall guys who played shortstop, Ernie set the standard. And then when he moved from shortstop to first base, he kept it going. Ernie had great hands. But he was a great teammate, and I'm telling you, I just enjoyed every minute playing for him, playing with him.
Hey, sweet swinger, it's Harold
Yes,
here.
Harold.
How you doing, my man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Just, waiting on the baseball season. We're going to get on the way a few days from now. We own our own station, marquee station, so you're going to get a chance to see a lot of the Cub players and a lot of things that happen in Chicago.
It's real.
We just got through with the hosting the basketball All-Star game, so it was great. We did a great thing for the All-Star game in Chicago.
It's real cool. Hey, so I got a chance to see this documentary on Ernie, and one of the things that stood out to me that made me laugh was you talked about, I roomed with him for 2 months, and then I said, he was like a radio you couldn't turn off. You had to move.
I had to give him to Fergie, Harold, because I couldn't spend another day. I was playing every day, and Ernie was those kind of guys that we go to bed at 12 o'clock at night. We have to talk and learn about all the pitches and in the major league, and we would go to bed, and about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, he would wake up. And I'm still trying to get my rest because I know we got a game the next day, but that's the way he was. He was energetic. He always going, and he was a fun guy to play with.
Hey, so that's funny. Off of that thing, too, I had another question I'd written down. I'm so intrigued on what were you two are Hall of Fame players. That's amazing. We're on the same team, and you had Fergie on there as well. But you two, I was curious, what were your conversations about hitting?
Well, when I first came to Major League, I wanted to learn about most of the players, the pitchers in the Major League, and I think the one thing that both of us had traits of, we had pretty good precision timing, and my swing and Ernie's swing wasn't a violent swing. I remember when he hit his 500 home run. I think if you see that clip, it's just a nice, smooth swing. We were playing in a ballpark. You didn't have to drive the ball 500 feet to get it out the ballpark. It was a nice ballpark, a good hitter's ballpark, but when Fergie came, it was a pitcher's ballpark. But both of us didn't have a violent swing, and we talk about seeing the ball, put the bat on the ball, not trying to do too much.
Wow, and also the story of Ernie is so intertwined with the Negro Leagues, and we've been doing a lot about that, and we'll have another documentary coming up here later in this show. But, he went straight from the Kansas City Monarchs to the Cubs.
Yes, he did. 1953, and he played in the Negro League. I didn't get a chance to play in the Negro League. I played with the Mobile Black Bears because it was a semi-pro team in Mobile, but Ernie came, he and Gene Baker. Ernie came with the Cubs, and, of course, Gene Baker came with the Cubs, and that was the shortstop, second base combination. And I know it was a thing because Buck O'Neill got him to come to Chicago, get him to sign with the Chicago Cubs. And I think it's one of the greatest things that happened to the Chicago Cubs and, of course, the city of Chicago, because he was intertwined. He was with the Chicago area. He was just, go around and talk about baseball, talk about the Cubs. If you ever talk to him and how positive he was, he would go into spring training every year. The Cubs going to win the pennant this year. The Cubs going to win the next year. The Cubs going to win the pennant. And we finally did it in 2016, and he's not here.
Yeah, that's something else. Hey, the star amongst stars, I talked about already. Ferguson Jenkins, Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame. Got Ernie on the club. Ron Santo came later with the Cubs. But Gale Sayers and Dick Butkus were with the Bears. And yet Ernie's still the one everybody talked about. Why was he so big?
Well, Ernie was one of the most popular players because if Ernie walking down the street, people don't have to talk to him. He would draw up a conversation with people on the street, you know, and moving around in Chicago on Michigan Avenue. He walked down the street and he see people, he just talk to them. And everybody he'd go up and see, if you're young and not married, he say, you married yet? When you going to get married? He tried to get everybody in the Chicago married, you know, if you're not married. And that's the way he was. He was as I say, he was an energetic personality. He always wanted to have fun. And seemed to me he always come up with some kind of saying, and a lot of times you didn't know what it means. He came out to the park one day. I guess he thought about this at night. He said, you got change for 3 cents. And I said, what the hell is he talking about? You know, but that was him. And he said, the weather will be cold, the weather will be hot. There will be weather or not. I said, man, who thought of that? You, Ernie. But that's the way he was, man. He was so much fun to be with, and that made the season, you know, to go quickly because we used to ride back and forth to the ballpark together. He lived at 82nd and Rose, and I lived at 74 and Constant, which wasn't that far. So we would carpool. He would drive one week, and I would drive one week. And the conversation we used to have, you know, we used to talk about the Monty Irvins, the Jackie Robinson, all those guys who played in the Negro League. And I learned a lot about those players that performed.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say, and I know Fran was jumping here, but I just kind of dominated this. You know, it was interesting listening to Hank Aaron talk about Ernie, and he was like, don't ever throw him a pitch low. Why was he such a great low ball hitter for a right-handed hitter? Left-handers like yourself, yeah, you're going to hit that ball.
Yeah, Ernie had that swing. You know, a lot of times they say a left-handed hitter, you know, don't throw him down and in. And this is the same about Ernie as being a right-handed hitter. He was a low ball hitter. And as I say, he had such good timing. And there were times he hit the ball in the upper strike zone, too. But he was a good low ball hitter. He drove the ball out the ballpark. He used a 35-inch bat. Ronnie and I used a 34.5-inch bat. And, of course, Ernie used a 35-inch bat. But he could get to that pitch low because he had such precision timing at the plate. And those breaking balls that drop on the outside and down, you know, he would reach out and pull those balls over left field fence.
Was it more the times that we were in? Because today, clearly, those Cub teams would have gotten the playoffs with more teams getting in. So was that a part of it, or were you guys just that bad?
No, we wasn't that bad. hey, Harold. No.
Get him, Billy. Get him, Billy.
I remember in '69, we just didn't have a center fielder. You know, I think we would have overtaken the Mets. Of course, the Mets won that year because they had such great pitching. But we were good. You know, every year that you know, guys would have decent years. Fergie winning 20 ball games. I'm hitting my 30 home run, driving in 100 runs, and Ernie doing the same thing. Ronnie doing the same thing, and it's just those times that you know, the team.
I just had to make sure your blood was boiling over there at spring training.
yeah, that's a sore word. That's a sore word around here. It's always been a sore word. You know what happened? You know, on the Mets ball club that year, 1969. Okay.
Yeah.
The two guys that were on that ball club, and of course they could have had 3 guys in the outfield at one time for Mobile. They had Cleon Jones with the ball club and Tommy Agee with the ball club,
right,
and Amos Otis. And I used to, you know, interact with them when they come to Chicago, and I go to New York. We go out to dinner and stuff. And I am the only player from Mobile, I think, haven't been in the World Series. So they kid me with that all the time.
Oh, my goodness.
Billy,
I'm sure they do.
We could talk to you all day and listen to your stories. I mean, it's great to spend a little time with you. Obviously, Harold did his homework and watched a documentary.
I've been knowing Billy since I was in the Instructional League. He pulled me aside.
Oh, yeah. What's your first baseman name? Davis. He was a good hitter,
Alvin Davis.
Alvin Davis. He was a good hitter.
Yeah, man.
He couldn't run, though, but he hit the ball.
He couldn't run, but he could hit.
He couldn't run. He couldn't beat out a base hit. Yeah. You
Great
remember?
stuff. Great.
Let me run across and tell him I say hello. I remember him because he was such a good hitter.
Oh, he can hit.
Had precision timing at the plate, too.
84 American League Rookie of the Year.
Yes, yes, he did.
Alvin Davis, but Billy
used to watch
to
the
pull.
young players coming up.
He pulled us all aside all the time, and he worked with Alvin even, but he pulled everybody aside and like, here's what you're gonna be, and he'd point out the type of player you needed to be to get to the big leagues.
Awesome.
You might think you can do this,
awesome.
but this is what you need to do.
Awesome. Good stuff.
I have not forgot.
Oh, real good, because that's what the players in the past did to me. When I came to the big league, they said, this is how you act as a major league player. This is what you have to do to be successful up here. And you learn that. And every young player comes to the big league, the old guys bring you aside. And, of course, when I was in Mobile, I was like 16, 17 years old, and I'm playing with guys 24, 25 years old. And if you make a mistake, they pull you to the side and say, hey, you want to be a baseball player? You can't play that way. You got to do it right if you want to play in the major league. So I took that to heart, and I'm glad you guys taking it to heart, too. So I've seen a lot of guys come up. I remember Winfield come up to me. He's a Hall of Fame player, of course, and he come up to me all the time. He said, thank you for what you did many, many years ago, when he first came to big league, and we talked. We had great conversation.
Great.
Special times, passing it on. Billy, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, sweet swinger.
Pass it on.
We appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, you guys have a nice day, and we finna get in our game now.
That's
American pastime, baseball.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The great Hall of Famer, Billy Williams. The documentary, Marquee Sports, More Than Mr. Cub, The Life of Ernie Banks. So it's going to air after the Cubs game airs on Marquee Sports as that network makes.
Make sure you watch it. It's a great, fascinating story on Ernie Banks and just the history of him and the Cubs.